The URC returns this weekend and there's some exciting matchups right from the off. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Okay, so in this one, we're going to just go quickly down through the matchups, for the first round because we don't have too much in terms of form or anything like that to worry about. So we just look at how the teams did last season and how I think they're going to do in the particular game that that we're talking about. So we're going to start with Friday the 26th of September. So we've got three games. The first is DHL Stormers versus Leinster. So talk about the Stormers, inaugural champions of the URC. They've made the playoffs every year, made the playoffs last year as well, finishing fifth in the table, but then got knocked out in the quarterfinals by Glasgow Warriors. And Leinster, the defending champions, started every season of the URC as favourites and finally actually delivered on that last season. But they didn't have it all their own way through the season, especially in Europe as well. And I don't expect them to have it all their own way this season either. I think, at the top, things really are beginning to tighten up. So given that Leinster, don't have a brilliant record down in South Africa, even though I'm a Leinster fan, I'm going to plug for the Stormers in this one. Next, then we have Ulster versus Dragons. So this is 14th versus 15th to the table last year. Ulster, had a few seasons of upheaval. Murphy's been there now a couple of seasons. So this year, really, I think Ulster fans we're expecting to see something from him. We know he's been building a young squad there, and you can see the players coming through, but they have to be more consistent. Dragons, under that cloud of the WRU saying that they're considering going down to two regions instead of four, and almost every other fan or administrator or wherever in Welsh rugby that isn't connected with the Dragons would absolutely have them down as one of the two to go, given that they've been rock bottom of the table for so long. And I feel like they've got to kind of almost do a Zebre. Zebre got threatened with the fact that they were going to be gone and just start producing. Dragons have to do something similar this year, I think. Personally, I do not want to see any Welsh regions go, whether that is, them deciding to go to two regions or, to talk of possibly Welsh regions actually moving to the Premiership in England. For me, I like the Welsh regions, I like the Welsh fans, and I hope that they stick around. But in terms of this game, I've got a plug for Ulster there. Next, then we have Glasgow Warriors versus Hollywood Sharks. So these are the two beaten semi-finals from last year. And for me, probably the pick of the weekend's games. There are some other, tasty ones in there as well. But, you look at that, you got Glasgow, champions 2 seasons ago. Got to the semi-final again last year. And it feels like, there's so much talent in that squad. Got to see them delivering consistently in the URC, and they're starting to do that. But now we also have to see them deliver in Europe as well. So and they generally seem to have a decent start to the season. Remember, they beat Leinster the first game up in the year they won it as well. So, but then looking at the Sharks had a brilliant run. They've actually been poor in the URC for most of the time in it, and especially the season before where they prioritized Europe and they came away with the Challenge Cup victory. But last year, so much drama in their run. Decent finish in the table. Finishing third in the table and actually leapfrogging the Warriors as well on the way to doing that. Then they had a dramatic shootout victory against Munster and then fell to the Bulls in the semi-finals. So decent for them. And Glasgow, for their part, were up there threatening Leinster for a lot of the season, fell away in the last few rounds. Then they beat the Stormers in their quarter-final and lost to Leinster in their semi-final. So, two teams I think that'll want to get a decent start to the season, but Glasgow at home got to back Glasgow for that. Okay, on to Saturday's games then. So first up, an interesting one. So you got the beaten finalists Vodacom Bulls versus Ospreys, a surprise team from 2 seasons ago where they what was it, 2 or 3% chance or something with 2 games to go to make the playoffs, and they made the playoffs. Um, but last year they were kind of up and down. I think the was it the Dragons' only win or something like that, right? Was beating them first up, and that was a big surprise because Ospreys were coming off that excellent season as well. But yeah, they were a bit kind of wishy-washy last year, and again, like the Dragons and the other Welsh teams, they're under that cloud of, what's actually going to happen. And even if they're not going to be one of the teams that goes or whatever, it's still just that uncertainty. You can't plan properly with stuff, and I don't like that kind of thing. But then the Bulls, they've been to more finals than anyone else and still haven't lifted the trophy. If you're a Bulls fan, you got to be thinking like, when is it going to happen? But as a Leinster fan, I have to say we were thinking that as well. So Bulls, your time I think will come, and maybe it's this season. And even though like the Stormers, the Bulls, Sharks, etc., and the Lions will be missing Springboks obviously because the Rugby Championship on at the moment as well, I still think the Bulls are going to have too much at home for the Ospreys. So I'm going to plug for the Bulls there. Next time we have Zebre versus Edinburgh. So two teams who had pretty good seasons last year. Zebre, they got, how many wins was it? It was like 6 or 7, right? They got five wins and a draw. But like they finished, only 9 points behind Ulster in 14th place. And Edinburgh finished 7th of the league on 49 points. And actually, Edinburgh finished 20 points ahead of Zebre down in 15th. But Zebre finished 20 points ahead of the Dragons, who finished last. So you can see the improvement there. They're getting closer to the other teams. They're going to have to continue that trajectory, and maybe it's going to take a couple of seasons before they can, get in that mix of the teams that are in the churn. Kind of between 6th place and 14th place. There seems to be a bit of a churn there, where during the season, there is that kind of group of teams that can occupy almost any one of those positions. But yeah, we still need to see more improvement from them. But I think maybe they might catch Edinburgh cold on this one, even though I'm wearing the Edinburgh shirt and it feels bad to back against them. But actually, no, I'm changing my mind right now. Even though my head is saying Zebre probably win that one, I'm wearing the Edinburgh shirt. I'm not backing against them. I'm going to go for Edinburgh to win that one. Okay, next time we have Scarlets versus Munster. So, champions from 3 seasons ago, away to the Scarlets, who had, brilliant, like a decent season. Actually, yeah, brilliant season for them. I think last year, making making the playoffs. I think Dwayne Peel added a bit of steel to them that they really were missing, and just they had so many, like 2 seasons ago, had so many games where it felt like they were just out of it. Heads went down, and the opposition were able to kind of take the victory once they got a few scores. But they had a bit more dog in them last year, and it really helped them to make those playoffs. Didn't progress any further than that. Lost to Leinster in the quarterfinal, but they gave Leinster a harder game than I think most people thought that they would. So, yeah, I think an excellent season for them. And now we've got to see them now back that up this year, but also produce in the Champions Cup as well. And I think that's going to be difficult for them with the squad that they have. But if you get a bit of a run going, it really can make a difference. But this one, I'm gonna back an Irish province in this and say that Munster are going to take the win. Next time we have Cardiff Rugby versus Lions. So two kind of nearly teams of the URC. in terms of, playoffs and stuff like that. Like Cardiff last year, up there, like they were second in the table at one point, fell away pretty badly and missed out on the playoffs by a point. And then the Lions, then, they've Cardiff finished ninth, Lions finished 2 places down in 11th. The Lions have been kind of similar, that they've had decent starts to seasons and then not been able to follow it up in the back end of the season. So, for these two teams, it seems like the start is very important, and this will be a hugely important game for them. But I will say for the Lions that for them, a lot of their um, early season success has come at home. So the fact that they're away, unless they can change something this season, I think I'm going to go for a Cardiff win in that one. And then we have the clash of the green teams to end it off. So we got Connacht versus Benetton. And, two teams last year, pretty inconsistent. You think about Benetton in the Champions Cup, they beat Bath, they beat La Rochelle as well in that competition, but then, lost some games that you thought that they would have won as well. And the same with the URC. They were up there in the playoff spots and then they fell away towards the end. They lost. Like, so some Munster had that kind of final game shootout where they kind of knew the winner was going to be in and the loser had to, rely on other results, and other results did not go Benetton's way after they lost that game. And then Connacht, Connacht, for me, there's a lot of inconsistent teams in this league, but for me, Connacht have to be the number one team, like, because not only is it like game to game that they're inconsistent, but also within games they're inconsistent. And even within the same half of a game, they can be inconsistent. Like first 20 minutes can be brilliant, and then suddenly, things flip on them. And yes, the momentum in games kind of swings back and forth a lot, but for Connacht, it doesn't seem to be just that natural swing of momentum. It just feels like whatever is going on with them, whether it seems like maybe a leadership issue, and hopefully this year it's something they can sort out, because they have some really good players, but and the frustrating thing about Connacht is when they play well and they produce their best, they look absolutely amazing. But then, as I said, they could do that for the first 30 minutes of a game and then look like absolute crap for the rest of the game and end up losing the game. So yeah, very consistent between those two. But I would say because Connacht are at home, I'm going to back them, at the Dexcom Stadium to pull out a first win of the season. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments.